Hubert Johnson here with Guardian Tax Law. We frequently get the question, does my tax debt ever go away? Simple answer, most of the time, yes, but it depends on who you're talking about. So first we're going to talk about the IRS. So the IRS tax debt has an expiration date, and it's typically 10 years from when it was assessed. So they call this a collection statute expiration date, or CSED for short. When you call the IRS, you can request what the actual dates that your debts are to expire for each tax year, and it gives you a rough idea of when they should expire. And once a tax debt expires, the IRS legally cannot pursue the debt anymore, and balances for the expired years drop off of your tax account. Now, true story, I had a client once where he owed around $25,000 to the IRS, and I called in and they said, look, you have $10,000 that's expiring in a week. You need to pay that first before you set up a payment plan on the rest of it. I said, yearly, we can't just do it on the 15,000 that will be left over. He said, no, absolutely, he has to pay it within the next week. I said, that's nice. I'll talk to the client and call you back. I called back, but called back 2 weeks later. The $10,000 was now gone. Didn't have any problem setting up a payment plan on the remaining $15,000. So know your rights. Know that once that time passes, the IRS is out of luck. Time has passed. Now, if you want to, or if you do make payments to older years that have expired, the IRS will still take your money, but you have no legal obligation to do so. State taxes, most state taxes become unenforceable after 20 years from the date of assessment. So in most cases, this can be extended up to 30 years, but that doesn't typically happen. California and New York are the biggest states that follow the 20-year rule, and that's the more common rule out there. However, know or find out what the rule is in your state, because some states don't expire for 30 years, or some states, they don't have an expiration date. They can pursue debt as long as you're alive, unless you file for bankruptcy or do something else. So check on what the rules are in your local state. So when does this 10 years or 20 years start running? It's when you file your taxes and the IRS actually processes the returns. So once those returns get processed and the IRS and state can start coming after you, they start sending letters or taking collection actions against you. That's when the clock starts ticking. But that also means if you have older returns and you file them very late, the clock starts ticking when you file the older returns, when those are processed. If you get audited, you have an examination, or the IRS files for you, the clock starts ticking when that happens, when that debt is assessed. Now, most states will not start the clock running when they file for you. They will require that you file an original return, and then the clock starts running when you file that original return. So that 20 years can get extended out for a long time. So it always helps to file timely. In most cases, it's ideal, because the biggest penalty that you avoid is failure to file timely. The only thing that helps is with the IRS. If it's more than 6 years old, it falls off. You don't have to file it anymore. But the states can go back 10, 15 years or more. So can that time, that expiration date, or when tax debt becomes unenforceable, be extended? Yes, it can. But it's usually when the taxpayer initiates something. So whenever you protect your account and the IRS or state can't come after you for bank levies, wage garnishments, seizures of the property, filing of tax liens, or suspension of licenses or passports, whenever you put a hold on it, on them coming after you, that's when that time gets extended out. Just a few examples: filing for bankruptcy. Not all tax debt can be discharged in a bankruptcy. If it's too recent, especially, that's when it can't be discharged. So when the bankruptcy is wrapped up and everything else is discharged, the time that the IRS had to come after you got extended for the same amount of time that you were in bankruptcy, plus a couple months, because it has to show in their system again that they can go after you. When you file an offer and compromise, that extends out how long they can come after you. So if you have a debt that's going away really soon, especially within a couple of years, filing an offer and compromise might not be the best solution, even if you qualify. Plenty of times I put someone in a hardship and just let the debt expire. It costs less, is less time, and when the debt goes away, the IRS can't do anything about it. When you file for any kind of appeal, a CDO appeal, a CAP appeal, there's all kinds of appeals you can file with the IRS. A lot of tax preparers do that willy-nilly just to buy time instead of actually use that time to move your case forward. And that's a big mistake, because all that does is give them more time to come after you. So big practice note here. Even though they give you CSEDs or they tell you when these debts are going to expire with the IRS,